Welcome, prospective students and parents, to a little conversation that we're having to help you with your decision-making process. We know the second year Live-On reinstatement is new this year, and we wanted to provide you with all the information you might need. Welcome. My name is Kat Cooper. I serve as the Chief Communications Officer for Residential and Hospitality Services, and I may have met you on our parents' Facebook page. If not, I invite you to join us there. Today, I'm being joined by two of our administrators who have been instrumental in putting this reinstatement in place, but more importantly, have been looking at the research and the data that helped us make this decision, and we want to share that with you. So today I'm joined by Senior Vice President for Residential and Hospitality Services, Benny Gore. Welcome, Benny.
Hello, how are you, Kat?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us. And Dean and Associate Provost of Undergraduate Education, Dr. Mark Largent. Welcome, Dr. Largent.
Good morning. Hi, Kat. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for being here today. So we're going to go through a few slides, and I'm going to ask these gentlemen some questions, and they're going to help us understand the entire process. So let's start off with what the goal was. Of course, we believe that every student who comes to MSU can graduate from MSU, and we want them to do that and be supported while they're here. So by reinstating this requirement and putting programming around it to help support students, we believe that we can get more people across the graduation stage. And that's what MSU is all about. So Mark, can you talk a little bit about the efforts that we've been going through to help students graduate?
Yeah, so MSU has had really for the last decade, but especially for about the last 4 years, a very laser focus on student success. And student success seems like a no-brainer. It's sort of one of those silly words like, well, why wouldn't you have a focus on student success? But when we say it, what we mean is something very specific. When we talk about student success, we think about the ways in which a university has a responsibility to cultivate the health and wellness of a group of people who come here and invest in themselves and invest in the university. And so that health and wellness is about emotional health, social, economic, and intellectual. So it's thought about in a very broad way. So it makes us think about issues like counseling and psychiatric services to support our students, like academic services that support their exploration of majors and their pathways to graduation, their class success in terms of their grades, also access in terms of making things economical for students to be able to afford to pay for college. We think about it in terms of degree progression and in terms of students finding the right major for them and a career pathway. And then third, we think about it in terms of students having a sense of belonging so that the university community feels like a place that supports them and they feel like they belong here. Those three things combined lead to increased rates of persistence and graduation. It leads to more successful students and then more successful graduates. And so that focus has been everywhere throughout our curriculum, throughout our social and student affairs programming, and throughout all of our business practices as well. And it's resulted in this increasing graduation rate. We've been adding a point a year for the last 5 years straight. We are now up to about 82% for our graduation rate for students that start here. The students that start here and don't finish, more than half of them go someplace else and finish. So we have extraordinarily high graduation rates at MSU.
That's wonderful. Can you just touch on some of those programs that have helped make the graduation rate go up?
Well, they are all the way back into when we start recruiting students and helping them think about themselves as college students and the preparation that they do as juniors and seniors in high school, the transitions that they make through new student orientation so that we're providing students with the information that they need, not just that summer before they start classes, but thinking about how they find the information that they're going to need 6 months or 2 or 3 years later so that they're well oriented to campus. It means changing the course pathways that we have. So our biggest success really has been mathematics lately. Mathematics really is a vexing problem for most universities because the K-12 preparation in mathematics is so different across the state and across the country that most schools use a remediation process in which they try to bring all the students up to a certain standard level. And what we've done a very different approach to it. We've expected a great deal more out of our students for mathematics ability, and we've poured a lot more resources into supporting them to get there. The result has been much higher persistence rates and much higher success in that. The students don't see math as a kind of barrier to them the way that they used to. And in our majors and then all the way through graduation, it's been about refining the curriculum. And every time we do this, we raise our standards. We ask more of our students, but we support them in better ways to get where we need them to go. But everybody thinks about grades. It's not all about grades, because the students that stay here and graduate and the students that don't have almost the exact same GPAs. It's not about just the grades, and it's about the much broader college experience. And if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that going to college is much more than just going to class. And in fact, students only spend about 15% of their waking hours in class. The other 85% are part of the college experience, which includes studying and preparing for class, of course, but it also includes all of the other things that are part of a younger person's development and pathway toward graduation and the beginning of a career.
Thanks, Mark. So Venny, Mark told us a little bit about these key influences to persistence to graduation. How does the RHS, the Residential and Hospitality Services experience help students get there?
So the 4 key success measures that you see here have been defined and have been studied through the NESE study. And supportive environment is critically important. And it's all the context that students make outside of the classroom. So you heard Mark talk a lot about what it means to have the college experience. And it is about study time. It's about management of your non-academic responsibilities. It's having contact with students from all over the world, from different parts of the state and the country. And it's making that social connected. One of the things that we do offer, which is really unique to Major Research One, is that we have academic classrooms that are located in the residence halls, 3 degree granting residential colleges. So the opportunity to have interaction with faculty, to meet with an advisor where you live, also to work on projects. Those are one of the things that sort of helps with the success of students. And there's a lot of opportunity to have co-curricular activities, whether that is doing things within your in your major and things of your interest. The feeling of belongingness and safety is critically important. How I feel and safe in my environment, but also too is being involved and belonging to this big Spartan community in that sense of what it means to be a Spartan. And that's critically important. And we have 500,000 alums, and that's the one thing they talked about, what it means to be a Spartan. The other part of this, which is probably one of the things that we focus a lot on, is financial well-being. And it's the sense that while I'm in school, I don't need to worry about my day-to-day expenses. So living on campus, you pay one price. It covers all of your expenses from the wireless to your food costs. Our food plan is set up so that it has everyday access so that you can come and go and you never run out of money. So you can focus in on what it means to be a college student and your experience without worrying about that. And one of the things that we have seen is that there are those who sort of prey on students who are looking for different types of living environments. And so you're living on campus the first 2 years, you don't have to worry about that.
Thank you, Venny. Mark, you and a lot of other smart researchers took a look at the data to find out how those different influencers were impacting our students, Michigan State students. Tell us a little bit about what you found.
Well, the soundbite on what we found is that there's about a 2.5 percentage point difference between students who do and don't choose to live on campus when it comes to graduation rates. Meaning that when you do a simple comparison, the sophomores who are living on campus with the sophomores who don't live on campus, those that choose to live on campus graduate at about 2.5 percentage points more than those who don't. So it's a simple comparison, but it's the first thing that we saw as we looked at it. What that means is that about 220 more people would graduate by living on campus than by living off campus. If the entire sophomore class chose one way or chose the other way, that's a huge difference. I mean, that's a massive difference. But that's just a correlation. And correlations, as you know, you're told in your high school mathematics class, are not causation. So we had a group of statisticians look at this for us very carefully. We had over 100,000 student data sources, meaning that looking at about 100,000 students over a little more than a 10-year period. And we have students who chose to live on campus and those who did not. And what we found was an actual causal relationship matching very similar students who did and didn't live on campus, and found that the correlation that we saw plays out as a causal relationship. That is, very similar students, very similar backgrounds, race, ethnicity, majors, high school GPAs, ACT scores. You match them and you look at the ones who do and don't live off campus, and we still saw a significant influence of living on campus in increasing persistence and graduation rates. More importantly for us, though, is that it has disproportionate impacts. That is, the students who suffer from the greatest opportunity gaps, that is, subgroups of students graduate at lower levels than the university average. So for example, first-gen students don't graduate as frequently as the average MSU student does. Students who are Pell receiving, who come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, do not graduate at the same rates as the average MSU students. Certain racial groups don't. Men don't. Men have about 3 to 4 point difference in graduation rates compared to the university average. All of those disproportionate impacts in opportunity gaps close at disproportionately large rates. That is, the students who most benefit from it see the biggest impacts, which is really important. We saw timing mattered. That is, when we watched the attrition rates, when we watched students leave the university, they left precisely during that sophomore year and immediately after it. That is, if there's a causal influence of living on campus in student success, we would see that difference open up, that gap between those two open up right during the sophomore year, and it does. Which tells us again that there's something about the actual act of living on campus. I said earlier, it's not really about the grades, that students who stay and students who leave have very similar GPAs. So we know that there's some kind of outside of the classroom influence that's helping students persist and graduate. The national research on this, peer-reviewed published research, supports this. There's a very large body of peer-reviewed research that demonstrates positive impacts of on-campus living compared to off-campus living. This is well aligned with our peers. Nationwide, about 20% of colleges and universities require students to live on campus at least 2 years. And that includes 2 other Big Tens right now, Northwestern and Ohio State. I will tell you there's 2 other additional Big Tens who are trying to push this through as well. The reason that a university might not require students to live on campus for more than a year is because they don't have enough space in the residence halls or in the university apartments. And Michigan State University does have that space. So it's a reasonable thing for us to do. And most importantly, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit more later, is the new inputs into student success that living on campus a second year is going to allow us to provide to our students. Our first year model with the Neighborhood Student Success Collaborative is a demonstrated positive influence in student success. Helping support students throughout that first year is really critical to them starting their second year in the right spot. And this gives us the opportunity to then extend that through a full 2 years. We know that if a student comes back here for their junior year, they have a 94% graduation rate. 94%, that's Ivy League numbers for a land-grant university. So we are an extraordinarily accessible institution that accepts a very wide range of students from a wide range of backgrounds. And we have graduation rates, if we get those students to junior year, that rivals what you see from the most elite universities in the country. That's really important to us. Ohio State is the most recent implementer of a 2-year requirement. And what they found is that students were 5 times more likely to come back for their sophomore year after the implementation of this, 5 times more likely to come back. So this is a really important new input for us in helping support our students so that they come here and they persist and they graduate.
Thank you, Mark. That was really enlightening. Some of that I even hadn't heard yet. Wonderful. Vinny, what's the sophomore slump and how do you see this play out at Michigan State?
So I think what happens, and you see this at many institutions where we spend a lot of resources and time and energy helping students get adjusted from high school into the university. And mainly speaking of our traditional students as they come in. And that first 6 weeks of the freshman year is critical in terms of making the adjustment and finding a sense of belonging, getting adjusted to the academic. So there's a lot of resources in it. As the sophomore year sort of progress, the uncertainty and dissatisfaction happens. At the same time, support services from the university drops. And this critical period between when a student is admitted into their college for their academic program and they're taking their gen ed classes. So one of the things that we really are focused on is reducing that uncertainty and dissatisfaction and increasing our support and services that we offer to students in their sophomore year.
Thank you.
So when you look at this, becomes the things that we think about is in sort of helping students is understanding their career and exploration, major selection. It isn't unusual for students who start college with an idea that they want to do something. And as they're here, they explore and they find other things that they actually find themselves interested in, or that they may not even know that existed in a degree. So I'll use myself as an example, Kat. I was a high school athlete, recruited to play football at Clemson, had a serious injury, and what most athletes do is they become PE, they join a PE major, so they become coaches. Halfway through my my college experience, I discovered a love for economics, and so I think that typically happens. You know, I didn't know as a high school student that there you could major in economics, or you could actually, you know, learn about economics. It just wasn't part of my high school curriculum. So that's, I think, a critical point. And then the other part of this is the college experience as we move through it is about developing critical thinking, communication skills, and also interpersonal competencies, intercultural competencies, because those things are real important in today's world. You know, most students will have up to 7 to 8 different jobs in their career, and some may change different industries. And we're in a very mobile society. And the one thing we have to learn from the pandemic is you can actually work in a lot of different places, and you can live in different places. So I think there's a lot of this opportunity for the second year that's important for only intellectual development and interpersonal development, but also academic development.
So now we're going to move into how the university is actually going to make this happen. And there are lots of questions out there about this. Vinny, how are we starting this off?
So beginning with the entering class of fall of 21, this class will be required to live on campus for 2 years. And we have a implementation committee that has been working diligently to work on the implementation. It is a group of academics, colleagues within residence halls, and also students were involved, because I think student input is critical in this. So we want to make sure that we have students participate.
And
So the other, one of the constant questions is, do we have enough space? And we do. We have enough space. As Mark has said, we are a large residential campus. We're one of the largest ones in the country, next to Rutgers and Penn State. This would approximately be about another 1,200 students who would be on campus, and once it's fully implemented. RHS is a self-sustaining auxiliary. We don't receive funds from tuition or the state or federal. So we're very much incentivized for providing a good value for our students.
And what will students see?
So one of the things which has been unique, I had spent time at the University of Washington for 20 years. And when I came here, within the first 6 weeks, students were being pressured to sign a lease before they really figured out where they are and who they are on campus. And so that will no longer be an issue for the first-year students that have that sort of experience. There will be other expanded options, single rooms, dining plan options. One of the critical concerns of students is that is there a place I can live on campus as a board optional? And yes, there are places that you can live on campus as a board optional. So there are some other opportunities. We have apartments located in residence halls. So, and the other part too is having more control over your financial obligations. What the cost would be for the first 2 years. So that we think that's critically important.
Absolutely. And there are some exceptions, even to the freshman year live-on requirement. Can you tell us a little more about those?
Yes. So we have exceptions, because we have students who live locally, commute live within radius of 40 miles of campus. They may live with their family. We also have veterans who will be freshmen, have served their country, are coming back. We have students who are married, who have children. We do offer family housing on campus. We also know that there are a group of our Spartans who are going part-time. They may have another job in town and they're doing that. So we honor those. Usually it's with our first year students, about 3% of the population that meet this criteria.
We are also working on accreditation programming for some off-campus residents.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so one of the things that's critical for Mark&I, as we've sort of talked about, is we call it the student success ecosystem. And we have students who live on campus, which is critical and important. We offer a lot of services, but we also have some group living environments off campus that also is part of that ecosystem. And that this gives Mark an opportunity and us to really think about how we support these sophomores that are living in these groups. And so we're working really diligently to think about these options and for various different groups, and also that their living environments are essentially the same as living on campus. So they have the same sort of requirements that you would have here. So we're working through all those things, and those are what the implementation group is working on. But we also know that it's real important that Spartans are Spartans, and so we want to make sure that they are successful their sophomore year.
Mark, we also have these engagement centers located across campus that RHS and the Provost Office have been working together to implement for years now. Tell us about those and what they provide for our students.
Yeah, so this is part of our neighborhood concept for student success, and this really kicked off MSU's intense focus on undergraduate student success about 10 years ago when it was first created. And Vinny was one of the architects of this when it happened. The idea is to take a very large university like Michigan State and to create neighborhoods in it the same way you would have neighborhoods in a large town or city. And these neighborhoods have in each one of them academic advising, student affairs folks, tutors, and academic support personnel, leadership opportunities for students, also counseling and social and emotional support. And the idea really is to have these 5 neighborhoods spread across campus that bunch together the students into a set of neighborhoods. So we have the Brody neighborhood, and we have the South neighborhood, we have River Trail, we have East, and we have, I missed one, Vinny, Circle, the North neighborhood. what we want to do is take what we know was a very successful model in supporting the first year students and extend that into a 2-year student experience. Because as I said, the students who come back for their junior year, who've had a very solid 2-year experience, when they come back for that junior year, they have an extraordinarily high graduation rate. So what we are hoping to do is take that 2.5 percentage point difference and to show that a second year of treatment and support on our students further increases their graduation rates. So it's I think a reasonable estimate that it will, and it certainly aligns with what published research and the experience at other universities tells us. It also gives us an opportunity to add to services, because what students want and need in their first year is different than what students want and need in their second year. So expanding those services builds on top of a set of first and second year activities that I know residential and hospitality services have already started to build out with the first and second year programs. What we've done to prepare for this is put together a group of very smart people from student affairs and academic affairs and RHS with the intention of crafting a coherent 2-year experience. So we recruit and admit, orient, matriculate, support students through their first year, and then support students through their second year in a coherent way that allows students to have that really solid foundation as they move into the upper division courses to be successful. And that's really built on the Compass program that RHS has already started.
Speaking of, we've got a little bit on that. Vinny, tell us about Spartan Compass.
Yes, so thank you, Mark, for helping to explain it. So we have a large cohort of students who are freshmen that live in East Neighborhood, and we consider East Neighborhood, Holmes, Acres, and Hubbard. And so what we've created was a support mechanism that's tailored to the first year experience. And our RAs, our resident assistants, and our hall directors are focused on floor engagement and individual support so we can build a sense of community. And then also have programming opportunities that are available for those students. Mark has an engagement center located in Hubbard, so it provides all of the academic support services. And I think one of the really critical things is the first year seminar courses that are available to students, because it gives that sort of smaller classroom experience with a faculty member, and it helps explore various different issues that students may be interested in learning about. So it's through these connections that sort of happen, and it's a very intentional program that has been developed, and that we're really excited about. We've been doing this for a couple of years, and it's been we've seen a lot of success from it.
So I'm hearing that really this program is aimed at getting students connected both academically and socially to the institution.
Yes, it's developing a sense of well-being and also a sense of belonging to the institution, making this large place feel small. When Mark talked about how the neighborhoods, we sort of thought, if you sort of think about this, that North neighborhood has 4,200 students that live there. That's the size of Yale. If you look at South neighborhood, that has about 4,500 students. That's the size of Harvard. If you look at Brody neighborhood, there's 2,500 students. That's the size of Dartmouth. So we have these large residential communities the size of some smaller institutions, and so it makes Michigan State feel small, yet has all the advantage of the bigness of a research one Big Ten institution. So I think we really have a unique opportunity here to create Spartans for life.
Wonderful. And we've taken our learnings from that and we've applied it to a new program called Spartan Navigator. Tell us more.
Yeah, so Spartan Navigator is sort of this next extension into the second year. And you heard me talk earlier about the sophomore slump. And really what this is really geared to is addressing those, that sophomore slump, is that sense of engagement and purpose. What is it that I want to be? What do I want to study? What's my profession as I look to that, whether it be in business or music or in social science or arts and letters. So sort of get some of this. And we also want, as our students to gain knowledge about themselves and who they are and how they interact with other people. And so this is the whole notion of interpersonal development and skills and intercultural competencies that we talk about. And in a sense of wellness. One of the things we've learned about this generation of wellness is really important, and that is both physical wellness and mental health wellness and diet. So all these aspects of wellness, we really want them to sort of gain the skills to take care of oneself. And lastly, we want to create leaders, right? We want people to go who leave our institution to go out to be world changers. So they may be the next big entrepreneur or the teacher, up in the UP, or they could be doing a number of different things. So the ability to get involved in student groups, to learn leadership skills, to serve others is an important part of the Spartan experience.
So Vinny, something I hear from parents and students is that living on campus is more expensive. What would you say to that?
I would say not. I mean, so you can live inexpensively off campus. You can. There are trade-offs with that. Some of the trade-offs is the distance from campus that you learn. It's the commute time that would happen. You could choose to eat less. You can do some of those things if you choose to do that. We are extremely competitive, in terms of our pricing and what we do, and when you sort of look at the cost of living on campus, it is equal or more of a value than living off campus for what you get in accessibility to the campus community and the faculty and to programs and being a part of that. So, and I think we have opportunities too, if you live on campus, to have job opportunities. We hire close to 3,500 students a year in all kinds of different environments. Some work for UCAT in marketing, and others work in culinary services, and some work in hospitality and get their credits they need for externships. So I mean, there are a lot of benefits for living on campus, and we think the cost is extremely competitive.
I would absolutely agree. Thank you again both for joining us today. We know there will be more questions and more answers coming as we move through the implementation process, and we're committed to communicating those with you. So keep your eye on the Live On website. We'll be sharing information there as well as in your MSU email. And if you have more questions, we invite you to reach out to us. Social media is the best way to find us. Follow us at Live On Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. We hope to be talking with you soon, and go green.
Go white.
Go white.